Why is there all of a sudden no accountability for criminal behavior? You know, our civilians, and no matter what community, they deserve protection as much as possible.
I do not know you, but I am your brother.
You do not know me, but I am your protector.
I will run into a burning building to save your life.
Though I do not know your name, I will take a bullet for you.
Though we've never met,
I believe in duty and sacrifice
of self.
Your family is my family.
Is my family. Your life is my duty.
What's going on, guys? It's time for another episode of Behind the Uniforms. You guys know how this works. I invite guests on, they share their stories to tell us about a good day, tell us about a bad day, and tell us about what they're doing today. So without further ado, Lieutenant, why don't you tell them all who you are?
My name is Lieutenant Kevin Dillon. I've been a lifelong law enforcement officer, so to speak. I graduated high school when I was 79, and I was on the job in 1980. I was so young, my mom had to buy my bullets for me. That's a true story. But anyway, I served 25 years in Weathersfield, Connecticut Police Department. And then that was about 2000, I developed a combative program for law enforcement called L.O.C.K.U.P. So after 25 years on the job, I retired and I took the L.O.C.K.U.P. program and the speaking engagements on the road. So the last 12 years, all I've been doing is teaching law enforcement combative speaking engagements. And now we're in 26 states and maybe 7 countries. And that's all I've been doing.
Wait, can we go back for a second? Your mother had to buy you bullets?
Yeah.
How'd that work out?
Well, in Connecticut at the time, you could be a police officer at the age of 18, but you could only buy bullets at 19.
That's
wild. You had to be 21 to buy bullets.
That's wild.
So we would go to the store, no kidding. What do you want, baby? You want the plus P hollow points? Yeah, Mom, give me the plus P hollow points.
That's crazy.
And I like that. I use that as a good intro because I'm like, hey, guys, that was the truth.
Well, for what it's worth, I mean, you could join the military at 18, but you can't have a beer to celebrate a win until 21. I'll never understand that.
Yeah.
I feel like there should be a special exception when you're serving our communities or our country. But I mean, that's a whole other episode. We'll dive into that. Where do you want to start? You want to tell me about a good day or a bad day?
Here was a bad day one time. I've had a lot of good days, I really have. But I also did a lot of sexual assault investigations. So there were a lot of bad days because you actually had to extract information from a lot of these little peanuts that have gone through a lot of trauma. All right, and then you have to extract the information from the perpetrators. I mean, you don't get in your face is completely opposite. All the TV stuff is like all BS, so to speak. So I did it for 5 or 6 years where I really have to say, listen, I know you love this kid, but the problem is the way you're just showing your love is wrong. It's not going to work. I know it's love, but we have to talk about that kind of stuff. So 6 years I did just focusing on that.
Jeez.
So that was more the emotional component that was probably the worst, all right, because you see these little peanuts, and then sometimes state agencies would put the same child back with the same drug abusing people. They wouldn't, I saw sad cases that step parents, or not step parents, maybe foster parents would have these kids for years. And next thing you know, judge will turn around, no, the mother wants them back. The mother is still homeless on the street doing drugs. That's okay to give the child back.
One of the things that I've always been so insanely impressed with in terms of law enforcement is the way that you guys are able to separate emotion from the job.
Yeah.
I don't think that I could ever do that. And that's why I could never, that for many other reasons, that's why I could never be a cop, because I could never look at a child being sexually abused and be able to remove emotion from that. And I think that's one of the areas that's so highly undervalued and underrated in law enforcement is your ability to step back and say, I'm just doing my job on this and I'm not getting emotionally. But how do you not get emotionally involved in that?
It's a physiological response. The same thing, anger management and control. You ever hear about take a deep breath and count to 10?
Yep.
Well, that's really good, but it doesn't work for police officers when somebody's right in your face.
Sure.
Can you imagine that? You son of, hold on a second. 4, 5. I mean, it's just asinine. I'm like, who's teaching you that? However, what it means, it takes the oxygen and prefrontal cortex, your logic and reasoning. Mathematics takes thought. So by counting to 10, you're breathing, you're getting the oxygenated blood back into this part of the brain, whereas your executive function and rational brain is. It's also the same thing, and I'll give an example of what I teach the guys and gals. So when you walk in, and this is a case I walked in, I looked down like this, and there's that poor little infant pumpkin, blue dead, all right? So now, when you do this, shut that back door over there. Do me a favor, go into the bathroom real quick. I want you to... Don't empty out that water. Get the thermometer. All these things, you're doing the same thing. This is the emotional part of the brain. Most humans do this. Oh my Jesus, that type of stuff. Well, you don't have time.
Right.
You need to be clear and focused on how to resolve that for that little punk. So it's the same thing. It's redirecting your thought to what needs to be done now. But that's why these things come back to haunt you later on. So you have to learn to deal with these, because that's a redirection of a thought process.
Sure.
The same thing you do with fear. And natural fear is almost like, hey, listen, you're a big guy. I don't want to have to deal with you, you know? And that's going to create a physiological response, going to lose cognition, redirection of oxygenated blood all over the place. I need to do this. You're a big guy, but I can take that knee. If that knee goes down, he's going to go down. If that knee's, I'm going to follow up with this. That suppresses the panic because you bring it right back up here.
To logic, right?
Yeah, so it's what you do on a regular basis. They don't realize it. They don't realize they're redirecting their oxygen. The same thing, I'm talking to this little pumpkin that maybe was abused and sexually assaulted. Now I have to extract the same thing. If this guy really saw how I felt about him, what do you think I'd get?
Shut down.
Nothing. Right, exactly. So it's the same thing. I need to shut the emotion off. I need to bring it back up here for him to believe that I can at least understand what he's trying to tell me.
Is that a learned skill, or is that something that's just sort of built into the DNA of a police officer, do you think?
It's a learned innate, or empathy, so to speak, can be an innate, but it can be learned and unlearned as far as I'm concerned. But many of this takes definitely training.
Sure.
All right. Because if you don't, some guys get it, some guys and gals don't, you know. So it's the better you learn how to do that, the better you're going to be in any profession when it comes to remaining calm, collective, and things of that nature.
Well, I mean, this might be a lousy analogy, but I look at what happened in Las Vegas a couple of months ago, the shooting, and obviously the natural reaction, there's the fight or flight, but so many people would go and hide and look to save their own lives. And then you had Marines that dove headfirst in and ran into the gunfire to save people's lives. And I think that's sort of a great example of the training that these guys go through of one person's brain is going to say, I'm out, I'm done, I'm panicking, I'm running. And there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. You almost have to be a little bit dysfunctional, like a firefighter, to say, when everybody else is running out, I'm running into that, and I'm going to go save lives, and I'm going to flip this switch. I've always just found it to be absolutely fascinating.
It's definitely condition, response, condition, response, condition, response.
Sure.
See, say, for example, I'm teaching a skill, all right? And you put the skill in the brain. Think about the brain as a filing cabinet. So if all of a sudden, boom, I see something, identify the potential threat or incident, my brain looks for that file cabinet. If it is nowhere near in the file cabinet, it goes back to the amygdala, goes back to the midbrain, bang, panic goes up.
Sure.
So you got to find the file. I'll give you a quick example. This is really good for anybody. And let's go back to the tragic fire that occurred in West Warwick. Remember that?
Yeah.
So when you come into a building, your brain will do this, snapshots that exit.
Yep.
That's that quick image that is now in your brain. Unless you do this and look at everything else, that's the only one that's going to solidify, even though there's one right here. So that's why when all of a sudden they're watching the band play, the pyrotechnics go off, ceiling gets set on fire, their brain here, where's my file? Right back there.
Right. So everybody's rushing there and nobody's escaping.
Right. That's why the bodies were all stacked up there. Now, to show you condition response, how it can be both positive and negative, as they are running out the rear door, the doorman was doing this. No. Go to the front. Go to the front. Go to the front. The exit's right there. So why do you think he would do that? Because that's all he was conditioned to do for years. Go to the front. Go to the front. Go to the front.
That's crazy.
So under stress, your logic and reasoning, bang, shuts down. You go to the file, and then you activate the file, even in something like that.
Wow, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Well, and this is a lot of what you specialize in, right?
Correct, yeah.
So before we dive into that, tell me about a good day. Well, let's give people some positive, because it's I find it so easy to get caught up in the challenges. You know, we put on the news and we see attacks on police officers, but then we also see that 7-second body cam or dash cam footage taken completely out of context, and now cops are immediately convicted in the court of public opinion. You've seen it play over 1 million times.
Yeah.
Tell me about a good day.
A good day is something like this. Hi, Lieutenant Dillon? Oh, yeah. You don't remember me, but I never forgot you. Simple things like...
that could be a bad day, too.
It could. That's usually when you say, okay. How's this one going to go? And he goes, we had a home invasion one time, and you came. But what it was emotionally disturbed individual. He goes, but you came in. He goes, you immediately stopped everything. You assessed it quick, and you said, go get me a blanket. because he had no shirt on. I said, go get me a blanket. This is not really a home invasion. This is a emotionally disturbed person, lost his way, cognitively can't really do these things. Sure. And I said, give me a blanket, do this, get him over here. Because this poor guy he has no capacity, all right? That's one. Another one, like, hi, Lieutenant, you arrested my father 20 years ago. I'm like, oh, and thank you so much. We've never seen anybody treat somebody with such respect, even during an entire arrest situation.
Wow.
You know, so these things are what makes it a good day. You know, for me, one of the best days was, hi, Lieutenant, I need to tell you something. Your training just saved my life. As a trainer, that's your ultimate satisfaction.
Of course.
Remember we just talked about the brain?
Yep.
She's attacked in Florida. She's got the earplugs on, just running around. Guy jumps out of the woods. Whoa, 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 starts attacking her. And she goes, everything you said first, like, oh my God, what's he doing to me? What's he doing to me? Right? She goes, then I remembered everything you said. No, what do I got to do to him? What do I got to do to him? What do I got to do to him? And as soon as he goes to get his belt, pow, she lays into him, bang, bang, out she goes.
Wow.
She showed me a picture. The composite, her face was beat, but she survived that encounter.
Wow.
Because she knew how to manipulate the brain to act at the right time.
Wow. You know, what's fascinating about that, I was with, our friend Rob, who runs Manchester Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu the other day, and there was an officer survival class. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that he reinforced was that it's not always win or lose. It's not always life or death. Sometimes it's a matter of surviving these attacks until support or reinforcements comes in, or until someone else comes in. And so you could end up in a situation like that where you are brutally attacked and physically wounded, but you survived. And a lot of people don't necessarily think about that sort of middle of the road. It's either you're alive and you escaped unscathed, or you're dead. And so much of that training. So let's talk a little bit about that training and what you're doing now.
The training is it's the same type of component. I had one of those situations there that we had a guy one time and he's trying to drag a little girl into the woods. Softball team comes up and it's almost like tug of war with this little peanut, right? So I find the guy and he's actually on a golf course. I'm like, hey, listen, man, you got to come with me for a second, bud. We got to talk about it, right? He turns, looks this way, he looks that way. I'm like, bro, don't even think about it. You ain't gonna outrun me. But I screwed up. I felt bad for the guy because I'm like, he looked like almost like a European immigrant, plaid jacket, non-matching plaid pants and stuff like that. Plus he was older, so I did not want to hurt him. Come on, man, don't run. Sure enough, he runs. And I have to take him down, boom. And it goes on a little bit, boom, take him down again. Now stop your fighting. And kind of funny story. Two golfers. Officer, do you need any assistance? Right? Dumbass me says, no, I'm all set, thank you very much. Do you mind if we play through?
Come on.
True story. Mildred, I think a 7-iron would be. As soon as they played through, this guy wraps me around and does a one-handed push-up, stands me up, throws me down to the ground, jumps on top of me, foaming at the mouth, choking me.
Jeez.
Yeah. Oh, it was a mistake for him. But anyway, I had been doing it for a long time, but that's how fast things can turn around. And this guy was a bricklayer. So you can tell how strong they are, so, but then again, obviously I'm sitting here perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But then once you get them back into control, you got to be able to, all right, because all force also is measured by timeliness. Sure. People don't even realize it. That's the issue with computers or video. If all of a sudden you're like, his hands are up, bang, bang. Well, you just shot him. His hands were up.
Right.
You don't understand time delay videos, all kinds of different videos. The real facts were the shots went fired first. He raised up his hands and then you heard the shots because of the time, distance, and delay.
Got it.
Things of that nature.
Got it. Well, one of the other components to this too, and this is something that the media doesn't realize, is that 7-second out of context video goes out there.
Yeah.
And then there's always police are not weighing in, they're not saying anything. They're not saying it was wrong. They're not saying it was right. Well, they're conducting an investigation.
Yeah.
And the difference between the police response and the response from the media and sort of that public lynch mob right away is that people have already decided that officer is guilty.
Yeah.
In the meantime, the department is trying to take the proper steps and procedures to see what really happened and release the true proper information to the media. But people don't get that. That's got to be incredibly frustrating for you guys.
Oh, because the video is completely distorted. You know, I saw it live. I said, yeah, I saw a guy in a red cape flying through the air the other day too on a video. I don't think that was real. I said, first of all, there's time, distance, frames per second. The human eye sees 1 frame per second. Recording devices can be a different frame per second. So you're not even seeing in the perception of the officer. I was on CNN not too long ago. And basically, I do turn them down most of the time.
They don't ever want me on.
Yeah,
Fox does, but not CNN for some reason.
Well, I've never been invited back. That might be a clue, too. Because I usually am like, nope, not interested, because that's all they want. We want you to talk about this clip. I said, I can't talk about that clip.
Right.
I don't know any facts and circumstances. It's not, you know, it's not the perception of the officer.
Right.
And I got another call from Mexico one time. Lieutenant, you're coming to teach the New Mexico Chiefs of Police. I said, yeah. And you're also coming to teach the New Mexico Sheriffs, yeah. And then you're also coming back to teach Roswell, New Mexico. I spent a lot of time in New Mexico. Hey, if we show you a videotape of a shooting, can you tell us what the facts and circumstances are? I'm like, sure. What are the frames per second of the recording device? Crickets. Oh, what? I said, what are the frames per second? Are you messing with us? I said, no. Yes, but no. I said, how can you, that's got nothing to do with the officer's perception. It's got nothing to do with the physiology of human performance factors. It's over here and they are over here.
Right.
You know, and so that's the thing that needs to be educated to the public about what somebody really sees. You and I could be like, we're looking right at each other, and this could be completely invisible because this brain focuses all of a sudden, if you're a threat and I'm locked in on you, all this becomes invisible. This is called selective attention. So when I'm on you, and that's called inattentive blindness. And of course, you know, the camera will say, you're right behind him. Couldn't see him.
Right.
That kind of stuff.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So your company now, what do you guys specialize in, and how can people reach out?
Well, my company is, this is another thing I'm changing. It's policecombat.com, because I wanted a universal understanding. But you know what? Even now, people are too aggressive terms. Who would ever think? I'm like, guys, real effective force has proven to minimize injuries to officers and civilians. I said, but this is one real quick story too, and then we'll get back to that other thing. CNN, officers are highly trained, Lieutenant, so why couldn't they have been able to do that? You know, Lieutenant, officers are highly trained, so how come they couldn't have been de-escalated that? Lieutenant, I said, that's the third time you just said officers are highly trained. I said, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? I said, no, what do you mean by that? You said it 3 times. If you say something 3 times, you're trying to push a point.
Sure.
So let's talk about that point real quick. What do you mean by highly trained? Give me some type of quantifiable data. I don't know. I said, I'll tell you what. Let's talk about a guy or gal, and they go into high school as a freshman. And then they make the wrestling team. And they come back as a sophomore, and they make the wrestling team. And then they come back again as a junior, and then a senior. So they wrestle all 4 years. I said, do you want to know how long it'll take the average officer to catch up to their training? They never do. They never even come close to a high school wrestler. You know, because if they get 40, 80 hours a year, 40 to 80 hours in basic training, maybe 4 hours a year in physical control tactics. Wow. And that's, you know, you think there'd be a big paradigm shift. Everything is de-escalation, we need to de-escalate. Did you not see the car ramming and slamming into everybody? Tell me what de-escalation technique you would probably use when he's coming at you with a automobile.
Lots of money more in your quarterback. Right?
Completely unrealistic. Why don't you get your bat belt and just kind of throw that little thing at him so he'll tie him up in knots and hang him upside down till the ambulance comes?
Listen, we just saw in Hartford, there was this big rally for this kid who was 15 years old, got behind the wheel of a vehicle and tried to run over a cop. And the cop had to shoot him. But this poor kid. What are you supposed to do? And he was unarmed. Nope. He had a 4,000-pound piece of metal behind him. So how do you de-escalate something like that? You can't. You end it.
Yeah. It's and then they'll show, you know, when you have some of these, you know, they're not even controversial. They create the controversy over. There's, like I said, the facts and circumstances aren't even out at that particular time. And there's no accountability for the criminal behavior. Why is there all of a sudden no accountability for criminal behavior? You know, our civilians, and no matter what community, they deserve protection as much as possible.
Yep.
You know, but anyway.
All right, your company.
The company, I started off with, it's all arrest control combative program. And it's almost like we try to develop as much evidence as you can, guys. Don't just teach, we should teach, why don't we do this? And they're still doing that. I said, you have use of force reports, right? I said, I want you to collect the use of force reports. Determine when officers use force, then you develop the curriculum for that. Here I'm going off on a tangent again.
That's okay.
So this is what I do. I train officers in physical arrest control tactics. We have a program called LEADS, Law Enforcement Active Diffusion Strategies, and that's brought me across the country. Because de-escalation is everything, but this class teaches not only de-escalation, but what do you do if it doesn't work? How do you have to learn to stall for backup? Say I got a drunk, right? I'm not going to go with you. You were going to fight. Now, listen, man, I don't want to fight, bud. Hey, do you think it'd be okay to drive in 10 minutes? Oh yeah. 782, give me another unit here. I don't know, man. I'm just kind of worried about you. Oh, you're teaching people. It's called deception. I don't want to fight him. And then maybe by stalling long enough to get a secondary unit, because I can't let him go. So little tricks like that to understand it. But the other thing is, communication is not innate either. Now it's so it's not innate. So we have to teach our officers. So I teach everything from communication, de-escalation training, use of force analysis, and of course L.O.C.K.U.P, which is our arrest control program.
Awesome.
But that's policecombat.com. But my civilian population has skyrocketed. Next week I'm doing Delta. I did another Minneapolis airport before. I do a lot of civilian organizations. So I have another, it's called diffusionstrategies.com. But so it's carrying it. And what's good about that, Kyle, and what I'm so proud about, I have significant evidence of it working for the average officer on the street.
It's awesome.
That's training is not to be measured by the speed of acquisition. Oh, you learned it really fast. It's not to be measured by the performance reach. I said it's only to be measured in the real world in the training environment. Law enforcement, we're the only organization that stops.
Yep.
We do the ABC system. I'm like, that's fantastic. Now, how's that work for you? Great. Now, what's the data say? What data? You collect use of force reports, right? Yeah. What's the data say? What's the effective rate? How often are they deploying it? What's the injury ratio? We don't collect that. Oh. When you survey the officers, what's the survey say pertaining to the feedback pertaining to retainability and effectiveness? We don't survey them either. So you really have no clue, do you?
It just feels good.
Right? I said, guys, take the due diligence, and that's also what's bringing me on the lecture circuit quite a bit, because I'm teaching them how to quantify the effectiveness. So
awesome.
That's pretty much
cool. Websites again?
Policecombat.com and diffusionstrategies.com. And if you Google me, it's Lieutenant Kevin Dillon. Don't just do Kevin Dillon, you get that other guy, that actor. So,
guys, thank you all so much for watching. It's going to take you 2 seconds at the share button, and the more we can share these positive messages and these stories, the more we can really begin to shift that paradigm. So, Lieutenant, thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure.
Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for sharing. God bless America.